Welcome CSC 235 to exercise 2C. The one before was 2B, and that's what I'm looking at right now. And we probably should have called it 2B. I didn't have you put 2B on, but that's okay. This will be 2C, and this one will be about problem solving and making our code more efficient. We have some debugging to do here, and we also want to fix some of this code here. On our last video, I mentioned that there's got to be an easier way than doing this long if-else statement, conditional statement with 12 items in here and putting ors and converting things, uppercase, lowercase. We already know there's easier ways to do that. There's a uppercase method, there's a lowercase method. We just have to look it up. And we can even look up how to determine if they spell it wrong and it's not in the list or it's not a month or anything like that. So we haven't done anything like that. But the first thing I wanted to look at was this, and I figured we could probably use a loop through an array, because remember we've worked through arrays before to convert from a number into a string so we could actually display a month. But this time we needed to work backwards. We're actually putting in a string and we want to work backwards and pull out this number. Now, these are index numbers in here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 already, and they go in a specific order. We don't put months out of order. Now, this could be a different situation if we had kind of a random array of all kinds of different things in here. But we have something that has 12 items and they're in order. So we might not even have to loop through it. And there is a method called indexOf. But here's what I did. And this is kind of following the video I had you watch. I thought, I could search for a while and look up some things and look through W3 schools and figure out how to do a loop or how to get the index number matched up. And I thought, you know what? I'll try ChatGPT. And normally I wouldn't tell you to use this because I don't want people cheating and figuring things out using ChatGPT. I don't want to do that because you don't learn well doing that. It's not a good way to learn. And if you're taking a test and you're using this, you're cheating. And you're cheating yourself because you're not learning anything. You're not using your brain. But I didn't want to spend an hour or so doing this. I wanted to just know where to look. So I use this as a tool to kind of help me sometimes and speed things up when I don't have a lot of time. And you have to know what to ask too. So you have to be aware of what's going on. And I just said I knew what the problem was. So I said I would like a user to enter a string of a month in a prompt like September and convert it. So I gave this situation and I wrote it out nicely. And I said, can I loop through an array? And it turns out we don't have to loop through it. All we have to do is use the indexOf method. And the nice thing about ChatGPT is they give you code. Now you have to change this code because they just use sample code. But if you're just searching in Stack Overflow and places like that, it's hard to sift through that stuff and find what you want. But right away it was saying to use this, which we thought we'd need. Now I copied this right from here. I could copy it right from here, or you could copy it from here and use this. Now we're going to use lowercase. They recommend using lowercase in here. Now let me just show you what they're doing here, and then we can kind of do it ourselves. We don't have to just copy and paste stuff and say, oh, there, I had ChatGPT figure it out. But they're obviously using an array, which we knew we'd have to use an array because that would be an easy way to get that number. And then they're showing the prompt. We already have the prompt. We don't need that. So they're using different variable names here, and they're using const all the time. I tend to use let because I think it's going to change, and I like to reassign it. They're giving different variable names, whereas I keep reassigning the let one. But, we'll see what works best. And they're also using the two lowercase methods so that whatever you put in there, it makes it lowercase and you can match it to the lowercase in there. So you don't have any issue. Then basically, you don't need a whole if-else statement. You could basically just pull the number from there. As long as it's in the correct order, you can just basically get whatever months is. They're calling it month index, but you could basically get it from the array and get the index number. So you're basically going to convert your variable to the index number. And that's what we did here with all this code. They're doing it in one line. So I knew we could do this just from Python, but if you're going from a different programming language, there's things you can do. You just may not know the exact language and use the right syntax to do that. So this kind of helped out a little bit. And as a little bonus here, they have an if-else if they don't enter something. So if someone puts in gibberish instead of the month name, they're saying not equals to -1. And, this is where, you don't just want to look at this and say, oh, okay, I'll just trust ChatGPT. I searched the array index of W3 schools, and they do things with fruits. And what's very important here is the indexOf method returns the first index position, and it starts at a specific index and searches from left to right. So it searches through so that we don't have to do a loop. IndexOf goes through and looks for the index. And look at this. This really helps. It returns a -1 if it's not found. So if someone turns in gibberish, so someone types something wrong, they spell it wrong, they don't bother to fill it in correctly, it returns a -1. So you know if it's a -1 that you got to say, hey, do this again or do something else. So this is very helpful. I started with ChatGPT to kind of get a little start on it here to see what they suggest. And then from here, they gave me some ideas to go back into W3 Schools. And now we could kind of do it on our own. So we're not cheating. And again, if this was a programming course, I don't know if I'd be showing you ChatGPT, but this is a web development course. So we're not going to have a whole lot of time to spend on programming language. We don't have to learn JavaScript inside and out. But what we're doing here is learning to be efficient. And we're also learning about validation, which we're going to have to do a lot, especially if we're dealing with data that gets sent to a server. We have to validate all that stuff. So we should know how to do that. And we shouldn't have to use a lot of code like this. We should be very efficient about it and not have to have a whole lot of code because that just makes more mistakes. So a couple things I just want to do here to get started. For one thing, I'm seeing an error down here and I just want to point out it's not really an error. It's just because my console log that I have down there is outside of the function. So when it runs, it's coming up, it can't find that variable because it's inside a function. I mentioned about scope. So if a variable is inside a function, you can't always get it outside. So that's an example of a scope error right there. It doesn't know where that's being defined, and it's being defined in a function, and we didn't run the function yet. So right away the console log's like, hey, there's an error. I don't know where you're getting this, because it won't run through all our code until we actually run the function. All right, so what I'm going to want you to do here is go over here to the name of your rappel that you did, and hopefully you did exercise 2B, and that's what this should be, 2B. And now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to fork it. And to fork it, you go to the 3 dots here. They don't really make it that available, but you go here to fork it and just give it a different name. And I'm going to call it, I'll put a 2C in front of it. I'll put 2C JS validate 21. I'll just do that because I didn't call my other one 2B, but this one's 2C. So I'll just do that and I'll fork it. So that basically makes a duplicate of it. That way your other one's fine. Your 2B is fine. Now we're not going to change anything here in the HTML. And this is where we're going to change some stuff. Now, what we can do, now I could copy this from ChatGPT if I want to. I'm just going to look at it, but I'm going to go here and copy it from here in my JS date get methods in W3 Schools, and you may even have it from your other rappel, but I'm going to just copy this here, the months, and I'll go back here, and we'll use this. We'll put it inside the function. We'll put everything inside the function. So I'll put it first, so it's available right away. And then I'll go through, there's a little work here, but I'm going to put everything to lowercase. So put everything to lowercase because that will be easier so that if people put in lowercase and match up with everything's lowercase, everything will be consistent. So I'm going to do that. Everything's lowercase now, and it's giving a wavy line here. It's declared, but it's never read. Okay, so that's not a bad wavy line. That's a good wavy line. It's just saying, hey, you didn't use it yet. It's just a reminder for you. When you see the red wavy line, that means there's more of a problem. So now we have this array that we're going to go through, and remember index number 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 11. Okay, and then we want to convert our B month. After people type in a string, we want to convert it back to a number, to an index number. And instead of doing this, and let's just wipe this out. Remember, this is a new one now. We forked it. So I'm going to wipe this out, and we don't have to worry about it here. So I'm going to wipe this whole thing out. All that work, now I just wiped it out. So now we have this. And let's just look at what ChatGPT told me here. They're going to convert it to lowercase. That's easy enough. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the index of the array. And we're going to use, basically, we're going to use the same variable name. Now let's just kind of make it lowercase first. Now we don't have to make a variable called lowercase input and month index and all that. You can if you want, but I'm not gonna. After they turn this in, I'm going to move this over here. Now, after they put in B month, now I'm not worried about B date yet because we have to do this right after they prompt because there's some things we have to take care of here. So right after they enter that, we want to convert it, and we can't say let again, but we can reassign. So we'll put B month, and that's how we reassign it, and we'll just say equals. So we're reassigning that, and we're getting an error here because we didn't finish this off yet. So B month is going to equal B month itself dot to, and look at that, it comes right up here to lowercase. So there's the method to convert everything to lowercase, and I'll put a semicolon. So now whatever we put in there is going to be lowercase. So that will fix any of that. So if they use a capital J, a lower j, whatever. So it's just converting it to lowercase. So whether they do it upper or lower, it's going to convert it to lower and match up with everything in here because there's more of a chance they'll do it lowercase. So that works out. So that's what we're doing first, and we're just reassigning. So B month is now a lowercase whatever they put in. Now, what we want to do, and we'll look at this again, is we basically want to reassign it to be the index number. So we could look at this array of index and see how indexOf works. Here it is. Let a variable equal indexOf. So I could even copy this. And again, I looked up JavaScript array indexOf. I could copy this and throw it in there. But we're not going to use let. We're just going to reassign it. We're going to use bmonth and so on. This will be our array, and this will be bmonth because we'll be looking for the index of itself. So I could copy that and throw it in there. I don't know if this helps or just retyping it, but I'll paste that in there. So we're not going to use let again. We're going to call it bmonth because it's going to be the same one. So you could give it a new name, but we're just keeping it with the same name. And we're not using fruits, we're using months. And it's indexOf, and it's indexOf what? Well, it's going to be indexOf bmonth. Not a string, it's going to be indexOf bmonth. Because bmonth should be in there. They should type something that's in there already. So bmonth should be in there, so we don't have to put in quotes anything. Bmonth will be whatever they type in, and it should be one of these. So if we were doing something else, it may not be this easy. One other thing we want to look at here, so this should convert bmonth to a number. So that should basically carry that number over. So when we do this, bmonth equals month, we shouldn't have to worry about anything. Now it's comparing numbers and numbers. So that shouldn't be an issue. So that should take care of that. And let's just see if it works. Let's see if this works so far. Let's run it. Confirm your age. And I'll use the one I was using, July 26th and 2002. You are 21. And by doing 2022, that actually compared the month. So that's using that. So that seems to be working. Now, the one thing we want to do here, we'll do one more last thing here. And wow, didn't that make things a lot easier? Let's try this. What if you do this? Now, what if you went June? You thought that's how June was spelled. And don't be so surprised. A lot of people have problems spelling the date, 23rd. Now, we're not worried about dates. Hopefully, they'll get the right date. And the year. Hopefully, they'll get the right year. Now, let's see what happens here. It says you are 21. So that's not really right. So what we want to do is catch something. Actually, let's see if we can get this wrong. Let's just put gibberish in here. And 23rd. And let's put a year of 2024. So this should not be, sorry, you're not 21. So it's using this part of it. So we're kind of not working here. It seems to be working even when we put in gibberish. But we want to catch gibberish. So how do we catch gibberish or a misspelling? And right here, returns -1 if the value is not found. Okay. So if it puts in a value that's not found, its index will be -1. Okay, so what we want to do is put this after it finds an index, because if it looks for an index that's not there, that's where we want to do an if statement. So it's pulling up an index, and if it's not in there, we're going to do it right here. So we don't want it to move on to anything else yet. So we're going to put in an if. Now, let's just look what they did here. I mean, not they, ChatGPT. They said month index, if it's not equal to -1, well, let's just say if it's equal to -1, and then put like an alert that, hey, you need to enter the right month. So let's just do that. So let's put if, and in parentheses, we'll put bmonth, because it'll still be that. We'll put if bmonth equals, and we'll put -1. So if it's -1, that means it didn't find it in the list. And then we'll put curly braces, and then we can do like an alert. We can say alert dot, I don't know if we need window.alert, window.alert. And then in parentheses, we'll put the alert, enter a valid month. We're telling them to insert a valid month. What's going to happen after that? Well, we don't want it to continue. Let's just see what happens here. Let's run this. Okay, let's put in gibberish and hit OK. And it keeps going. So it lets us keep going. We want to stop it. How do we stop it? We just put return. You don't know? Look it up. How to stop a function in JavaScript. Return. That's all you need. Just return a value or just return. And that should stop the function. So basically, we don't even need an else because it'll just keep going on. So if it's something that's not in there, this is just like a little catch here. So it's going to catch if they put in gibberish or they spell it wrong, if there's a misspelling. So this will catch a misspelling and stop the function and make you start over again. So if it ignores this, if this is not true, if they have something that's in this array, it'll just keep going on. So let's try it. Confirm your age, and I'll put in gibberish. Please enter a valid month. Stops. That's what we want. And let's try it again and just do it right. We'll put July 26th. I'll put 2023. Let's put 2003. So they should not be 21. Okay? And let's put if today's your birthday. Let's try it one more time. And we'll put September. Let's put capital September. So we know that our 2 lowercase is working. We'll hit OK. And then the date of birth, we'll put, today's the 21st. I'll put 21st. And I'll put 2002. Because if it was 2003, it would be over. But this should be their birthday. Because if you add 21 to that, it'd be your birthday today. I'll hit OK. And it says you are 21. Now we need some kind of real happy thing going on there. Because that wasn't very dramatic. But anyway, that's all you need to do for that. So I just wanted to go over making our code a lot more efficient. Again, this error is coming up down here in the console because that's outside of here. If we put this in here, we cut this and we put it in our function, we'd be fine. We wouldn't get that error. We could run it again. No more error down there. So now it's part of there because its variable is part of the scope within the function. So it knows where it is. So that's all you have to do for 2b, but just wanted to finish that up. And again, just a mention about ChatGPT. I don't want you using this to kind of figure things out. And again, this isn't a programming course, so we're not going to be doing a whole lot of programming, and it's not going to help you a whole lot with web development when we work with some other frameworks and things like that. So, you're not going to be doing this for every exercise. And I also want you to learn how to use this maybe as a tool. I don't use it to figure things out for you, but use it when you're completely stuck. Not when you're lost. If you're lost, let me know that, I can help you kind of figure things out. But if you have one of those challenges, you're completely stuck. Don't just put it in and let it solve it for you. Kind of ask a question, and hopefully they'll kind of lead you in the direction you want to go and save some time. I could have searched this through Google and Stack Overflow and poured through here, but it was a lot quicker. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And I knew these methods, lowercase, indexOf, just like from Python as well. So I just thought I had to use a loop, but we don't have to use a loop since we already have an array here. And because we don't have to use a loop because it's in order already. And thankfully, this indexOf goes in order. So if it was something where we had a random just pull out a whole list of things like we do in our Python class, then we have to kind of loop through something. But here we don't because it's already in the order that we want. So that made things a lot easier. And all you have to do is just copy and paste this. For 2c, I'll put that in assignments. I don't have it in there yet, but I wanted to get this recorded. And that's all you have to do. So you should have a version that has that big, long if-else statement that converts strings back to numbers, or we use basically 2 lines of code to take care of that. And then we used 2 lines of code took care of about 12, 24 lines of code from our if-else statements, all together. 2 lines of code. And then we even used 4 lines of code here, not even, basically it's 1 statement or 2 lines of code really, or 3, we don't have to include the curly brace, but now with this little if statement here, and it's a good thing we did all those if statements because now we're familiar with using these and we're understanding how they work. So again, it's a process. I want you to be familiar with all these conditional statements, and I want you to be familiar with the JavaScript language. We're not going to dwell on every aspect of JavaScript, but this is a good way to kind of look at how we can make things a little more efficient and how we can move things along faster. And hopefully we could use this again in the future if we have to pull anything from that, because you could go back and say, oh yeah, I remember doing that in that date thing. We just got the index number from that. So hopefully this will be a building block for other things we do in here. And hopefully you won't get into cheating or trying to have ChatGPT do everything for you. Hey, use it as a tool. It's a great tool, just like Google's a tool, just like all your resources are a tool, just like that power couple video said look at the documentation and all that. I mean, these aren't secrets. People aren't, they're not trying to make programming a secret. Everybody, you don't think programmers look stuff up? You don't think programmers are using ChatGPT to figure out a problem? But again, when you're taking a course, don't use ChatGPT to figure things out because you want to work on your brain. You want to get smarter. You want to have a more logical kind of brain. You want to troubleshoot. You want to get better at doing that because that's really going to help you in everything that you do. And then it'll help you when you need to go to ChatGPT and type something in, and you'll know exactly how to narrow into what you really want, and it'll give you a good answer back. Because if you just put in something that doesn't make sense, you're going to get something back that doesn't make sense. So it's still a tool that you have to use correctly. So anyway, that's 2C, and just copy that link and put it in there, and we'll have a little discussion about that as well.